All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's program. My name is Erin Walker. I'm the Makerspace and Digital Literacies Librarian at Brampton Library. Thank you for joining us for today's session on advanced 3D modeling software with Sheridan CAMDT. Today's session is being recorded and will be posted to the Brampton Library YouTube channel at a later date. And you'll notice that all attendees have been muted. And I do ask you to please keep your mic and camera off during the presentation. However, there will be time for questions at the end, at which time we will invite you to unmute yourself if you wish to ask your question verbally. Alternately, you may type your questions into the chat and we will refer to those during the question and answer period. For anyone who may require closed captioning, you can find the live transcript button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can select Show Subtitle for the transcript to appear as subtitles at the bottom of the meeting video, or full transcript for a window to open in a side panel. Before we begin our session this afternoon, I would like to acknowledge that Brampton Library is located on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and before them the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Huron, and Wendat. We also acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and other global Indigenous people that now call Brampton their home. We are honored to live, work, and enjoy this land. A few quick service announcements from Brampton Library. While our branches are closed to the public as a result of the current Ontario COVID-19 restrictions, we do have curbside pickup available from all locations. And of course, you can access ebooks, e-learning, virtual programs, and more at bramptonlibrary.ca. If you haven't already, I invite you to download our new Brampton Library mobile app available for iOS and Android. And most recently, this week, we launched a live chat service. So you can visit our website and get live chat support from a librarian. A little bit about 3D printing at Brampton Library, since we are going to be discussing 3D modeling today. Normally, when we are not in a global pandemic, you can access free 3D printing from our Chinguacousy, Four Corners, and Springdale branches. While we are closed, we are offering a Makerspace on-demand service through our website. We invite you to upload a 3D print request, an STL file, through a form on our website, after which we will review a request and invite you to a virtual consultation with a librarian. After we've discussed your project, we will then 3D print it for you and you can pick it up through our curbside pickup service. And coming up next weekend, we have a special event in partnership with Mississauga Library. It is a virtual Maker Fest. There will be special programming around 3D printing, 3D design, app development, a virtual fix-it clinic, and other explorations of new technologies. And you can find more details about that on our website at bramptonlibrary.ca. Just look for the Maker Fest banner. All right, in today's program, we are going to be examining advanced 3D modeling software packages. And at Brampton Library, we often introduce customers to TinkerCAD, which is a free browser-based application, which has a very low barrier of entry. TinkerCAD is a tool that's often praised for its simplicity and ease of use, and it is a great entry point into the world of 3D modeling. However, there may come a time when you need to access a more sophisticated 3D modeling tool. With that said, I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, who will be introducing us to some of the popular options and the pros and cons of each to help you decide which software package might best suit your 3D modeling needs. Our speaker today is Ramzy Ganady, a research technologist from the Center for Advanced Manufacturing and Design Technology. He is a recent graduate of the Sheridan College Electrical Mechanical Diploma program, and during his time as a Sheridan student, he worked on many applied research projects at CAMDT with various industry partners. Ramzy has a passion for technology and is highly skilled in robotics, fabrication, design, 3D printing, CNC machining, and PLC programming. He's also participated and played an essential role representing Sheridan in various competitions and projects, including the 2017 Electric Vehicle Challenge, the 2019 World Skills Test Project, among others. Ramzy, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today and for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us today. With that said, I'm going to hand the floor over to you and invite you to start sharing your screen.
Thank you, Erin, for that introduction. Hello, everyone. So today we will be discussing some software modeling, some modeling software. I picked 3 of them, and I picked SolidWorks, which is by a company called Dassault Systems. They also make multiple other CAD software, SolidWorks being the most famous of them. Creo, it's made by a company called Parametric Technology Corporation, and Fusion 360. It's made by Autodesk, and they also make TinkerCAD, AutoCAD, and other products as well. So I recorded a few demos here that I wanted to share with you, just to show you how similar these softwares are, and that once you know the CAD basics of these CAD softwares, then you can basically go into any of these CAD softwares and be a pro at it. So as you can see here, we just pick a plane and then draw a sketch on it, and then we tell it to extrude. Some of these commands are very common across multiple platforms. And then you've created your, it's a very simple shape that I've picked here, but it's just to show you the similarities. And we have Creo here. So this is the user interface for it. It's going to be the same process here where you pick a plane, you draw your sketch, and then you tell it to extrude it. And this is Fusion 360. Also the same process. So yeah, as you can see, they're all pretty similar as long as you know the CAD basics, CAD being computer-aided design. So any software that you use on your computer to design something is called CAD. So as long as you know these principles, then you can basically get into any software and be a pro at. So these are the criteria that I usually look at when I'm picking a CAD software. You want it to be quick to learn, no steep learning curves. You want it to cost as little as possible. And of course, you want it to be easy to use. So let's look at SolidWorks here. Its main advantages is that it's easy to use. Its GUI, the user interface is very good. You can find all the commands very easily. It's also widely used, so a lot of engineering companies and firms use SolidWorks. So if you haven't heard of it and are getting into the engineering field, you'll probably hear of it. And it also has an integrated data management system inside of it. So basically, it's good for companies that make large parts or large assemblies of parts, large products, so they can integrate all those parts into that data management, and it saves it to the cloud as well. Then we have the cons of SolidWorks. So one of the main disadvantages of SolidWorks is that it costs a little bit too much. It's basically $12.95 a year for a subscription. And if you want the permanent license, then you're paying $4,000. And it is not free for students. So for students, it's about 110 a year for the subscription. It's also very resource hungry. So you would need a very high-end computer to run it. They also have issues with some graphics cards. So like if your computer has a graphics card that hasn't been in the market for a while, then SolidWorks might not have the drivers that go with your graphics card. So you might not have the best experience. And stability is sometimes an issue too when you're dealing with large assemblies. And that's why they have another product called CATIA within their product line to deal with those large assemblies. And we have Creo. So Creo is free for students. If you have a university or school email, then you can easily download it online. They just ask for that email and then they send you a confirmation. You can be on your way. It also integrates with advanced tools. So if you're looking into getting into the engineering field, it integrates with a infinite analysis tool, and it basically identifies the stresses in a part, and it makes sure that you're designing your parts very efficiently. That tool is called ANSYS, and it has a direct integration with that. It's also very easy to change models after the fact. So for example, SolidWorks, you would have to design the part knowing that you wanted to change that aspect of that part in the future in order for it to be easy to change in the future, but you don't necessarily need to do that with Creo. Creo is also formerly known as Pro-E. So if you've heard of Pro Engineering before, they rebranded and they're now called Creo. So the cons of Creo, so poor user interface. The commands are not very easily found. You'll have a hard time getting used to it. Therefore, it has a high learning curve. It also has problems with large assemblies, just like SolidWorks. And then we have Fusion 360. So Fusion 360 is easy to use. Its user interface is very easy. The commands look great. They have multiple shortcuts. So for example, if you want to extrude something, you just type E on your keyboard and that basically extrudes your model, and multiple other shortcuts that you can look into. It's also cloud-based, so you don't really need heavy computing power to do it. And it's also free for students. For non-students, it's $645 a year. And for the cons of Fusion, it's hardly used in the industry. And that's because it's mainly cloud-based and that technology is new. Plus companies are not very highly motivated to train all their employees on a new software. Another con is because it's cloud-based, it requires a very stable internet connection. So if you're in a rural area getting like satellite internet, you might not have the best experience. And it also may occasionally suffer from crashes when you're dealing with large assemblies. So your decision process basically for any of these CAD softwares, if you pick any of these or any other, I highly recommend that you learn your CAD principles and the commands that you use, how to create your sketches, and then you pick your CAD software based on your circumstances, and you can just be the best at it, and companies will seek you because you're the best at that software. So I had a poll ready here. Aaron, if you want to pull it up.
Yep, sure. 1 second.
And so based on the presentation, which software would you likely pick? Okay, so we have one Fusion, okay, and one other. So what would be the other, you think?
I'm curious. Yeah, whoever selected other, you can type it in the chat. I guess they're shy.
All right.
All right,
Fair
I'm going
enough.
to end the poll.
Okay, so here are some resources if you want to learn these softwares. So we have my favorite one is LinkedIn Learning, formerly known as lynda.com, and it's basically lots of industry professionals that have their courses on there. You can even learn the CAD principles on there. And yeah, they're industry professionals. They make these courses. They get paid for it by LinkedIn Learning. And I believe you get access to it for free through the library. And or if you have a school that has LinkedIn Learning, then you can access that as well.
Yes,
And then we have,
that's right.
yeah, so you can access it through the library. And then we have YouTube, like our go-to for any tutorial. Fusion 360 has an official YouTube channel, and that's what I recommend you go if you go with Fusion. And then LinkedIn Learning actually has some SolidWorks courses, but SolidWorks actually, if you're willing to pay, it's just a little on the expensive side. They do offer e-courses. Also, Creo offer courses as well. They're not as expensive as SolidWorks, but still expensive. You can also find various resources on Creo on LinkedIn Learning or YouTube. All right, so thanks
Okay.
everyone, and I'll open the floor up for questions.
Yes, thank you, Ramzy. Does anyone who's in the audience have any questions for Ramzy? Anything you'd like him to explain more about? Feel free to unmute yourself, or you can use the raise hand feature, or type your question in the chat. And I actually have a question. Of the three options that you've presented this afternoon, which software package has the best support for its users?
So the best support is from SolidWorks, mainly because you pay the most for it, so they have to offer you some support. But also Fusion is very new, so you won't find very tailored support. You'll find like more community chats and things that that you can ask like your questions on, and then someone in the community will answer your questions. Creo is not as widely used as SolidWorks, and they don't have a very big lineup of products, so they don't offer as much support as SolidWorks. So yeah, SolidWorks is the best for support.
Okay. We do have a question from Riaz in the chat. Riaz asks, how about 3ds Max? Have you used it? Do you know anything about that particular product?
I have not heard of 3ds Max. Is it, which company is it from?
I have heard of it, but I haven't. Oh, it's an Autodesk product. Okay.
So yeah, like a lot of companies make um, like lots of products for different things. So like I know Autodesk also makes Inventor. It's also a CAD software. Um, they've integrated new tools in it that you can like adapt your model to like different stresses and analyses. And so the Salt systems that make SolidWorks actually makes like a ton of products. Maybe 3ds Max is intended for something else, like rather for a more specific application, but I have not heard of it that much, to be honest.
Mhm. That's an interesting point. Something we haven't mentioned this afternoon is that there are different types of 3D modeling for different applications. I think, Ramzy, what you've covered here today is mostly around what might be used in an engineering or a manufacturing environments. But there are, of course, other tools that can be used for other 3D modeling purposes around, say, multimedia creation tools, gaming, yes, like Sal says, gaming, animation, that type of thing, 3D modeling that might not necessarily be um, outputted in a physical way.
Yeah, so these were mainly tailored to product design. Um, so like if you're designing a product, like a smaller product, um, you're not necessarily designing a plane with like lots of components in it. So yeah, there are lots of software like for application specific. So it depends what you're looking for. I know for sculpting, the one that I've heard about is Maya for sculpting. And
Yeah. I know the other one that's an open source free application that's more suitable for sculpting or uh, more organic type of 3D modeling would be Blender, which is it's very powerful, but it also has a huge learning curve. But if you are more interested in that more organic style of 3D modeling, it might be worth investigating as well.
yes, for sure.
Okay. Do we have any other questions from the audience? All right, I'll ask one. Of the three packages that we've looked at today, which would you say is the most used?
So the most used again is SolidWorks, mainly because it has been there the longest. They offer
Okay.
great support for it. Um, and yeah, you can become certified in SolidWorks as well. Like SolidWorks offers some certification courses.
Okay.
Um, so you can become a certified professional, a certified associate, and then companies really seek that certification.
So if someone were interested in pursuing a profession or career in this field, would you suggest that they explore SolidWorks primarily?
Yes, I would suggest SolidWorks mainly because it's widely used across multiple companies. You know, like CAMDT, we work with like research partners um, around Brampton and Ontario, really. So um, most of the companies are very familiar with SolidWorks if they don't use it already.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I highly recommend if you're going into that field to learn SolidWorks.
Something that I've noticed, you know, I'm a TinkerCAD lady. That's where I'm comfortable at. But I'm interested in exploring something a little more sophisticated. So I am curious about Fusion 360. And I know that there is a export from TinkerCAD into Fusion 360, which seems like a nice bridge between the two products.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like if you're trying to bridge between TinkerCAD, and I guess that's what Autodesk is trying to do really, is trying to get you to go from TinkerCAD, which is like a beginner
Yeah.
type of software, into like the more sophisticated ones, then yeah, go for it. And yeah, it sounds like a pretty good feature.
Okay. You mentioned some resources for learning about these specific packages. Do you have any suggestions for where someone might learn more of the basics of CAD?
Yes, so LinkedIn Learning does have lots of CAD basics, um, as well as YouTube. But YouTube is not really standard. So like you would need to like look for verified channels, but I highly recommend visiting LinkedIn Learning if you do have access to it
Mhm.
through the library.
Yes, actually, we just recently migrated from lynda.com to LinkedIn Learning. So we now have access to the full LinkedIn Learning catalog, which has increased the number of courses significantly. And there's a lot of newer content there as well, which is terrific. Um, there is a question from Riaz. What kind of applications need 3D modeling apart from manufacturing?
Um, which type of manufacturing? Could you maybe rephrase the question?
Uh, so I think Riaz, oh, he says CAD and CAM.
Oh yeah. So CAM is computer assisted machining. Um, so actually Fusion 360 has a CAM package. I don't know if you'll be paying extra for it, but basically CAM is what you would use to program a CNC machine, a computer numerical control, and it's what you use for um, to machine to basically, instead of 3D printing, which is additive, you're basically subtracting material out of a block of material, and you use a CNC for that. So yeah, SolidWorks does have a CAM package, but you pay for extra for it. Um, Fusion 360, I'm sure they have a free version for students. I'm not 100% sure about Creo. Creo is the one that I don't use the most, but maybe they do.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much, Ramzy, for this informative presentation. And I think what you really highlighted is how important it is to choose the right 3D modeling software for you, especially if you want to realize your ideas without wasting time on the wrong tool. I think, like, to summarize, the three main things to consider are, of course, cost. When you're selecting which tool to invest in, you don't want to be shelling out lots of money for something that might just be an occasional hobby. Um, the user experience, also very important. Of course, you want to make sure that you're going to enjoy using that tool that you use, so that you're more inclined to keep using it. And then lastly, the learning curve. You don't want to invest hours and hours of time into learning how to say model some basic geometry when there's tools that can do that a lot easier. You want to make sure that the time it takes to learn the product is really worth that investment. Um, so you did also highlight some additional resources. I'm going to highlight a few more. We've mentioned LinkedIn Learning a couple of times now. Highly recommend. I did a quick search today on what's available, and there are modules on all of the tools that Ramzy has reviewed today, as well as many others. Of course, at Brampton Library, you can borrow physical books. You can place a hold through our catalog and pick them up by curbside pickup. And of course, if there are any other resources that you would like to access from Brampton Library, please let us know. We have a suggest a purchase form on our website. That's not just for books, you can also suggest e-resources, e-learning resources for our collections team to consider. And of course, for older titles, we can also see if we can borrow them for you through interlibrary loan. And then another application, or sorry, another resource that I just wanted to highlight because I've personally found this one to be very useful is the website all3dp.com. That is kept up to date. They're always posting reviews and information about the latest tools, including other 3D modeling software packages. So if this is something you are interested in learning more about, I highly recommend that you check out this website regularly. All right, before we wrap things up, are there any other questions or comments from the audience today? All right. So thank you for this introduction to these more advanced tools, Ramzy. Um, Before we wrap things up, I do want to remind everyone that summer is coming and our summer clubs will be launching on June 1st. There will be summer reading clubs for kids, our Brampton Brain Game, for teens and for adults. Lots of special activities, virtual programs, and prizes for everyone. So keep your eyes peeled for the sign up information starting June 1st. So thank you, Ramzy and Sheridan CAMDT for joining us today. And thank you to everyone who joined us in the audience. If you're not already, please follow at Brampton Library on our social media platforms to stay up to date on our programs and services. You can also email me at makerspace@bramptonlibrary.ca. With that said, I wish everyone a great afternoon. Please stay safe and well, and we hope to see you again soon.
Awesome. See you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ramzy.
Thank you.
Take care.